God will multiply your blessings. You are a great person, a great grandson, a great son, and a great friend. God will, multiply your blessings.
And my daughters, you know what they're being taught to be? Wives and mothers. Oh, you want to be ignorant. No, college is what makes you stupid.
He has extra money, so he's, oh, sure, here, yeah, let me loan you this, let me give you this, because I've got more than I need.
I told you this, nigga.
In business, the goal is for you to become independent and be the boss, take the responsibility, and also get the profit.
I ain't got no motherfucking boss.
SP motherfucking I.
The freedom bell ring got me fly like a free. Fly like an eagle. Let's go. Free. Let's go.
I mean, discipline is doing what you hate to do, but do it like you love it.
Doing what you hate to do, but do it like you love it. That is a great quote.
I want all the cars. I want all my niggas with the cars. I want all the hoes. I want all the jewelry. We popping bottles.
Stay the fuck away from these hoes. The dumb motherfuckers. Like, god damn.
Shout out, big respect to Taliban. They just kicked all the Afghan women out of the colleges and workforce. They may have just saved the family.
What the fuck?
Yo, what the fuck?
This nigga wildin', bro.
Lord Hybrid. Yo, this nigga, bro. Raymond,
God of Thunder. Taliban.
Yo, y'all got no chill in the chat, man.
I told you this, nigga, 2 years ago, you was gonna get left.
Now go home and get your fucking shine box. Come on, I got a present for you. Suck it! Suck it, nigga!
And Lord Hybrid is in the building.
Yo, what it look like? It's your boy, Lord Hybrid. And why am I here? Why am I streaming at 12:47 a.m.? Because I feel like it, nigga, that's why. Anyway, we're here to talk about the white man is our brother, Christian Americanism. That's what we're here to talk about today. Okay. White man is our brother. You know what, man? When you look at all of these Americans, they're shipping people in illegally. Some not good people. I'm sure some good people. You got all of these groups of Americans from different places in the world, Asians, Indians, Mexicans, Caribbeans, South Americans, Central Americans, Europeans. Well, we're going to leave out the Europeans. But if you look at it, who's been here since the beginning and who built this? who bore the burdens, executed the plans, created the plans, who built this? The white man and the black man. We the two men who've been here since the beginning of America. We are the ones who put out the labor in America. We created America. We built America. Now, one of the problems that I see is us as foundational Americans, the white man and the black man, the builders of America, you know, who fought and died and killed for America in the wars, even when we were at war with ourselves. White man and the black man. All the wars, the early wars, the Civil War. Who was the first person to die for the cause of freedom, to initiate the revolution? It was a black man. We've been here. We shed blood. We killed. We died. We built the white man and the black man. So if you look at all these other groups of Americans, like, you know, Asian, Japanese, Nigerians, Jewish, Indians, Chinese, you know, all these people that's coming to America say, we're Americans, we're taking over, and they are taking over. Just got to remember that we've been together since the beginning. Relationship wasn't always great, wasn't always fair, but together we built this. Nobody contributed more out of all of these other Americans than us. We've been here since the beginning. We are foundational. And, you know, when I look at the media, we want to talk about diversity in America. I think we have a diversity problem. You know, like having control over the media. You know, there's not diversity in that area. And there's a lot of complaints, you know, about the media and the control of the media, the banking system, and now the government. You know, and it's costing America. So we don't have diversity in these areas. And it seems as though foundational Americans have been left out. And the media, be it social or legacy, is controlled, and is not diverse in that control. So the information is not democratized enough because we don't have any ownership of media. Now, how are we divided? If the original American family does not come together again, then we will lose America. If the original principles, if we don't learn our culture, even though we built this, but it's slipping away. We don't learn our true culture. If we don't know how to separate the culture that was from outside inserted in. Most blacks don't know about black culture. You don't know anything. All you know is what was programmed to you from the outside. A representation of your culture that's distorted to the negative and makes you see yourself as that and has just demoralized and trying at every possible way to strip us from our faith. Our brother gave us our faith in many cases. It's a good faith, good principles. And when we all organized around the same principles, then we can interact and we can grow and we can flourish. But people who don't share our principles control media, banking, there's no diversity in that area of power, and it's our own fault. Man, I don't know. I think we need to unite. They control about legacy media. We need Christian media. And there should be, I couldn't do my Christian media through Google. Now they have control over the message. They can censor whatever parts of the message. There needs to be Christian-owned media, Christian-owned platforms like this that promote, because what the legacy system is promoting to us is things that is against our faith. LGBTQ. I don't want to see that. I stopped watching the media, I think 13 years ago, because LGBTQ was being inserted into the programming. I just refused to watch it. Ran me off the media. So what if there was a media channel or platform where that was not, you wouldn't have to worry about seeing that, because we, based on our faith principles, like how when I grew up, TV was certain things they wouldn't show on TV. But now all of the programming that we get comes from the outside people where there's a lack of diversity, and the information that they're promoting isn't positive. It's, as a matter of fact, very damaging. It's damaging. Pushing forward disunity through racism. Everything's about race, gender ideology, every possible thing that you could slice up and separate and cause division amongst people. Now, from the Christian media, we had a very understandable understanding of gender. It was very simple: two genders, masculine, feminine. But now, twisting basic principles that we already figured that out. It's two: masculine, feminine, male, female. That's it. Now all of this other stuff, who's pushing that? Who's media? Do we have a media that you can go to, like you don't have to worry about seeing that? I don't want to see that. I don't even want my kids to be exposed to that. The music, violent, debaucherous, completely demoralizing, pro everything, our principles, our Christian principles, our true culture. If you're a Black American or a white American, if you're a foundational American, our principles, and I'm not talking about Native Americans. Native Americans aren't Americans. Native Americans consider themselves like the Indian nation, separate, different principles, different everything. Some of them may be Christian. I don't really know much about them, but they don't consider themselves to be Americans like we consider ourselves to be Americans. I'm talking about foundational Americans. foundational Americans. Yeah, so we need a different media. We need a different social media. We need stuff that sticks to our principles, owned by us, controlled by us. I don't want my kids to see, and that's part. Look, if you forget about the race thing and think about principles and interests, what are my ideological principles? And what are in the best interest of me, financially, generationally? Are our next generations gonna benefit from the information that they're getting from the legacy media, the outside control media, as well as the social media, and not even the public universities and some of the private ones? As Christians, we have plenty of universities. If we eliminate the race thing and all we think about is our principles and our interests, what's in our best interest overall, and unite on those principles, and we share Christian principles. There's more Christians in America than any other demographic. We unite as Christians. If you don't want to be a Christian, fine. Even if you're not really a practicing Christian, but you believe in Christian principles, you should be with the Christians. You should be investing. You should be on Christian platforms. Christians have to unite economically and create alternative systems where we don't even need to touch legacy systems. Everything we touch, we control. Christians, you can trust it. It's good. Invest that way. So if we unite based on our interests, based on our culture, our real culture, most black people don't even know what black culture is. All they know is what the legacy, like a lot of young black people, seem like the older black people, like the 40 somethings and up, seem like they kind of forgetting what our black culture was and where it came from, and they've never even experienced it. Now, if you go back to black music back in the 70s and the 60s, and even the 50s, and listen to black music, and then compare it to the black music that's out now, you'll notice a stark difference. A big difference. A lot less morality, a lot less talent, a lot less meaningfulness, a lot more destructive, negative, demoralizing, meaning anti our Christian values, which is our compass of our morality. Totally normalizing all of the things that our faith said is prohibited and forbidden. Promoting that stuff, promoting the things that's from our faith forbidden, and the things that are most dangerous to us and are destroying us. Who's making music about starting a family and getting married, honoring their wife, honoring their husband, songs about faithfulness, songs about good principles. I would like to hear that type of music, not just sexual, angry, mad, anti the other gender. I don't need no man music. You know, these hoes ain't crap. These hoes ain't shit. Everybody's making negative information, and who's financing it? Who's organizing it? Who's paying out? It's not us. So there should be an option to where you don't have to even hear that. But it's good, modern, new, good stuff, but you don't even know your culture. Where's your culture from? I'm going to show you your culture so you know your culture. If you're African American, this is your real culture. I doubt you've ever seen your real culture. So let's give you some of your real culture.
Let my people go.
Now when Israel was in Egypt land,
Let my people go.
oppressed so hard they could not stand.
Let go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Let my people go.
Now when Israel was in Egypt land,
Let my people go.
oppressed so hard they could not stand.
Let my people go.
So
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free.
Well, it's long John, long John, he's long gone, long gone, he's long gone, he's long gone, he's long gone, long gone. Well, if I had listened, what the roses said, I could been at home, and the roses bed, Well, if I wouldn't listen, got to run and around, First thing I know, I was jail I found, Well, I got in jail, with my mouth poked out, Well, now I'm in the pen, and I can't get out, It's long gone.
This is from the Library of Congress about free blacks in the antebellum period. So free blacks. Free blacks in the antebellum period, those years from the formation of the Union until the Civil War, were quite outspoken about the injustice of slavery. Their ability to express themselves, however, was determined by whether they lived in the North or the South. Free Southern blacks continued to live under the shadow of slavery, unable to travel or assemble as freely as those in the North. It was also more difficult for them to organize and sustain churches, schools, or fraternal orders such as the Masons. Although their lives were circumscribed by numerous discriminatory laws, even in the colonial period, freed African Americans especially in the North, were active participants in American society. Black men enlisted as soldiers and fought in the American Revolution and the War of 1812. Some who been here putting in work? Who been here putting in work all these years? It's the foundational Americans. Me and my brother, the white man. And we got the same interests. And I need my brother. And my brother would be better off with me. And now's the time that we actually could achieve that, but there's outsiders pushing information towards us. But we have been here contributing to society for a long time as blacks and as whites. We are the foundational Americans. And I don't think most, especially younger blacks, don't know this type of information about what, what was life like for early Black Americans and what were they up to? What were they doing? What were their priorities? What was their economics? What were their numbers? Most people don't know. So information like this gives you some insights onto, my homeboy was telling me, he was like, well, we always assume that us as Black Americans were descended from slaves, but there were blacks who came over like in the 1600s before 1776 who were free and participants in society pre-slavery in America, along with the white Europeans. There was a lot of Quakers and all kind of people coming up, mostly religious people were the first settlers, mostly religious people, different denominations of Christianity that may not have been favored where they were coming from. Pentecostals and holiness and Methodists, Episcopals, and all of these people came, early on because of the religious freedom, which is one of our principles of America. And some of those people were blacks coming from Europe. And some of us are descended from free blacks, free Americans from generations before slavery. I'm talking about foundational. Yeah, we've been here, me and my brother. So for us to not be able to get along after all these years, especially with all of the changes, opportunities available, racist laws being stricken down, the most money, the most credit, the most opportunities, the best economy, working with those guys, our brothers, us working together, it always, it's a good thing. And we need to be able to do that. And any animosities should no longer exist. It should be about principles, our Christian principles, and our interests. Ain't that what alone is about? Principle and interest? Yeah. We need to apply those concepts of our principles, our Christian principles, and working together for the benefit of both of our interests, because we've been here together and we stuck here together. And we done helped each other. Yeah, the white man helped us too. White man helped us a lot. White man made us the richest Africans in the world. Go to Africa. Yeah, our collective Black American wealth is surpassing most African nations. And we broke. If we judge it by, all the charts and the wealth distribution, we fall very solidly at the bottom. And now you're going to hate your brother? Own land, homes, businesses, and paid taxes. in some northern cities for brief revolution and the War of 1812. Some owned land, homes, businesses, and paid taxes. In some northern cities for brief periods of time, black property owners voted. A very small number of free blacks owned slaves. The slaves that most free blacks purchased were relatives whom they later manumitted, which means set free. A few free blacks also owned slave holding plantations in Louisiana, Virginia, and South Carolina. And I was telling my buddy, there were large black plantation slave owners, and they were pro-slavery, and they were been on the side of the secession, the Union, the South. So when it's communicated a lot of times in history, they think it was all about racism, but humans operate on economics. It was for the people who benefited from that system. Some of them were black.
Come on, man.
South Carolina. That's why black. In Virginia, Louisiana, and South Carolina. That's why I hate the racism thing. Free African American Christians founded their own churches, which became the hub of the economic, social, and intellectual lives of blacks in many areas of the fledgling nation. And see, that is what people don't understand. Or people don't understand, I don't think it's good for people to talk against faith. I don't talk against faith. I talk for faith. Faith is what we need. If we lose our faith completely as a nation, we will lose our freedom. We won't be fit to be free. Have to be overregulated. Won't have no principles. We'll have been demoralized. We're in the process of being totally demoralized. And we don't have other media options for us to tell our Christian Americans, our foundational Americans, and even non-foundational Americans, because even Indian Americans, Japanese Americans, and Nigerian Americans, and Cuban Americans, Dominican Americans, all kind of Mexican Americans, a lot of them Mexican Americans, we're not saying if most of them are Christian. Most of those people are Christians and share our same principles. So we don't unite based on just being foundational Americans. Now, I'm not going to let you turn me against my brother. We already worked out our differences. We work together. We need each other. We got the same interests and we got the same principles because we're both Christians. So now we got the Indians, that's Christians. We got the Koreans and Nigerians. So now if we make the mistake of trying to unite by race, we'll always fall because that's stupid and we won't have the same principles. People will be scamming. As soon as you start following a dude like a Jay Morrison and he's telling you black, invest together, Tulsa real estate fund, do it because we're black. Let's pool our money, black. That's not going to work. Because that person doesn't have morals. See, if that was a Christian wouldn't steal your money. You could trust the Christian things if it was the real Christian people. And we need to be understanding that the lesson from this is listen to this now. And intellectual free African American Christians founded their own churches, which became the hub. Who did that? free African American Christians. Free African American Christians. That's why I hate the racism thing. Free African American Christians founded their own churches, which became the hub of the economic, social, and intellectual lives of blacks in many areas of the fledgling nation. So the Christians created the churches, and the churches became the hub. The hub of what? It was all about racism, but humans operate on economics. A few free blacks also owned slave-holding plantations in Louisiana, Virginia, and South Carolina. And I was telling my buddy, there were large black, the secession, the Union, the South. So when it's about racism, but humans operate on economics. Virginia, Louisiana, and South Carolina. Free African American Christians founded their own churches, which became the hub of the economic. The Christians created the churches, so the black American Christian, these are freed people. They're talking about the freed people in the northern states, the freed black people organized and created the churches. The churches become the economic hub. So this is where we all come together. We all know that we go to these churches, so we all have the same principles of honesty and not stealing and doing fair business and all that stuff. And in our Christian education system, which we need to switch over to private faith-based education only, the Christians, the freed blacks formed the churches, so they formed the economic hub. This is the after slavery, our culture developing based on we've reached another level. We're free. We got our own money. We can start our own churches. We got from the black universities. We got educations. We can read. We can do math. We can do business. We can have our own stuff. The law still ain't quite what they need to be, but we created our own. So the black Christians, remember, it wasn't the secularists or the agnostics or the atheists. They didn't create this. And so everything about our black economics and our black transition out of slavery and the way we organize our society came from black Christians. You can't do it without that. Virginia, Louisiana, and South Carolina. That's why I hate the racism thing. Free African American Christians founded their own churches, which became the hub of the economic, social. So the Christians created, the black Christians created the black economic hub, social hub, and intellectual lives of blacks and intellectual hubs. So black American economy, black American social interactions, and black American in many areas of the fledgling own churches, which became the hub of the economic, social, and intellectual life. That's everything. Economic, social, and intellectual. From the church, so like Richard Allen's church, my church, created Allen University. We had our own college created from our faith-based institution, which lasted so long. This is back during slavery days, which lasted so long that I grew up in the same institution. That's my church. and it still exists around the country. We built networks. We founded private institutions. Private meaning we had with our own money. We did that. Institutions are still there today. So when these people rail against Christianity, I did it too, and I understand that when you think you know something, you think you're smart enough, you think you have enough intelligence. Life taught me that I didn't, and I went back to my faith, and it was the best decision I made, and I'm glad. Far from perfect, I mess up all the time. But those who are preaching against faith shouldn't do that because we need it, and even George Washington knew he needed it. Big George. Here we go.
Hello, this short web seminar is provided by uscivicstraining.org, George Washington's Farewell Address, Part 5, Religion, Morality, Virtue, and Freedom. George Washington particularly is hard-hitting and poignant in this section of his farewell address. We're, again, past the halfway point, and he takes this moment to reflect on religion and morality and says this.
Now look, y'all. See, this is what I'm talking about, where we need to learn how to be Americans. George Washington in his farewell address, this is his, his last thing to say on his way out of public service, which he had been for his entire life. He fought the wars in the Revolutionary War. He was fighting before that. He was fighting his whole life. He was a soldier. He was a general. And he ultimately led us to victory against the British and then served as our first president. And the beauty of President Washington is that he was apolitical. He didn't care about political parties. He wasn't a part of a political party. And he didn't like fighting and arguing. He liked, let's come together to decide what's best for this country. And he was known for that. And he's leaving his final, this is almost like what you would leave your children if you know you about to die, the things you would write to leave them, to give them guidance. You would leave your best wisdom. And from the man himself, who was apolitical, he gave this farewell speech and he touched on a lot of things. And these are the things that should be on the minds of Americans. And all Americans should read or listen to George Washington's farewell speech. Gives you a little good, pure bit of good information by which to judge our government and our society. These are the things that were the most important to him, that he wanted us to know, to remember these things.
Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. In vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism who should labor to subvert these great pillars of human happiness, these firmest props of the duties of men and citizens.
Let's go over what the president, the father of our nation, what is he trying to tell us? Religion and morality are indispensable. Okay. Big homie. Indispensable. Let me see what that means. I think I know what it means. What would they say? Merriam-Webster. Absolutely necessary, not subject to being set aside or neglected. Okay, so the father of our nation is telling us, and he wants us to know into the future, that religion and morality are indispensable supports, meaning we can't do without these. We need this. This is what he's saying. You need religion and morality. And we are actively being demoralized by an outside media, not foundational, not Christian, outside. That's why all us Christians, the whole family got to get together. We all got to get back together and stick together. The Christian family. I don't care what race you are. Of all of the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. So he's saying it's one of the best habits that will give us political prosperity. We don't have political prosperity right now. And he's saying we don't have it because we've eliminated and are in the process of eliminating religion and definitely morality. And we got our morality from our religion, and our religion has principles and things that are forbidden, things it says are bad, like LGBTQ, like gender, anything other than male and female, masculine and feminine, naturally born that way. LGBTQ is against our religion and our morality. Therefore, it is immoral to Christians, and we don't want our children. So we need a separate media that we control to plug our children into that will give them information that we want them to have and shield them from information that we don't want them aware of and we don't even want touching their minds. If us as Christian go back to our, not decide our principles, go back to our faith and follow our principles. Yeah, no, it ain't no discussion. If it says it's wrong in this book, then that's it. We don't get a choice. We don't get a choice. That's the thing about the faith. We don't write it. We are subject to it. We're obligated to obey it. Okay, so if we want political prosperity, the best habit that we can have is religion and morality. In vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism who should labor to subvert great pillars of human happiness. These great pillars. Okay, so it's basically saying religion and morality are the great pillars of human happiness. We can't be happy without morality. We can't be happy without religion. And we aren't happy. Everybody's depressed because many people who benefit from your depression financially are the same people who benefit from pushing immorality onto you. These non-foundational Americans, these non-Christians.
And so in these remarks right here, Washington is making it very clear that for political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. And a man could not be called a true patriot who would labor against the expression of religion and morality in the civic and public sphere. The mere politician, equally with the pious man, ought to respect and to cherish them. A volume could not trace all their connections with private and public felicity, that means happiness. Let it simply be asked, where is the security for property, for reputation, for life, if the sense of religious obligation desert the oaths, which are the instruments of investigation in the courts of justice? Now here he's particularly saying that if you use the example of courts of law and even oaths as far as what you would take in a court of law or what you would take in upholding the Constitution, if there's not a perspective that there's a God in the universe that holds men accountable for their action, then what is the anchor point for security, for property, reputation, for life? Why shouldn't people lie under oath and work to get their own way? If there is no God, then anything is permissible. And so he makes the case here that it's just an anchor point. That
You understand?
Work to get their own way. If there is no God, then anything is permissible.
So they got to remove your God to make things that are forbidden and clearly terrible permissible. Separate you from God, separating America from Christianity, separating the people from the churches, disorganizing them, demoralizing them. Without morality, they can't be happy, so they're unhappy. They're addicted to bad information. They're unhappy. You've told them that they need mental health care. On the mental health care, you program them and give them drugs. I got a cousin that just got destroyed by mental health medications. He a little bit older than me, born with some, I don't know if he was born with it or if he was vaccinated to it, but he was born with some type of like slowness or retardation or something like that. And he always was a bit slow, but he was as he got older, he got a little aggressive, or so his mother put him on prescription medication. He's been on a prescription medication for many years, probably a couple of decades or even more. And now he's hyper aggressive and his speech is all slurred. And he never talked like that before. And he's just crazy. He is totally fucking bugged out. And she was like, his mother, I went to see them and I was really taken aback by seeing his current state because I'd never seen him like that. And they was like, yeah, he's constantly aggressive all day. He's paranoid. His speech is really slurred, and he like what we used to think when we thought of the word retarded and how they said, duh, 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 duh. You know, there were people like that, and he's kind of like that now, which he wasn't before. And the level of aggression, his eyes are bulged, and he can't be still, and he's yelling at everybody, and he's mad at everybody. It was shocking. I was like, damn. She was like, well, they gave him some and now it don't work no more. And I think they upped his dosage and then he was like this. And I was like, this is why I'm disconnected from so many legacy systems. I would never take up mental health drug or see a therapist. I wouldn't do it. I won't submit to that. And now I got to see the long-term results of mental health medication on a family member.
And so he makes the case here that it's just an anchor point, that these universal moral standards that religion and morality provide are just the essence and the anchor point of a free government that values life, property, and reputation.
I want to go over this actually. The mere politician, equally with the pious man, ought to respect and to cherish them, meaning morality and religion. A volume could not trace all their connections with private and public felicity. Okay. So you can't even calculate how valuable they are to keeping everybody happy. The private sector, the public sector, just all of us having the same principles and having morality, the same morality, creates a peaceful, happy citizenry. Let it simply be asked, where is the security for property, for reputation, for life? If the sense of religious obligation desert the oaths, okay, which are the instruments of investigation in courts of justice? Yeah. So like the dude said, he even wants you acknowledging God when you accept your oath. Because if it ain't God watching over you, you don't swear before God, then there's no real authority. There's no moral compass. So if you don't accept God, then we can't trust you, basically.
And morality provide are just the essence and the anchor point of a free government that values life, property, and reputation. And let us with caution indulge the supposition that morality can be maintained without religion. Whatever may be conceded to the influence of refined education on minds of peculiar structure, reason and experience both forbid us to expect that national morality can prevail in exclusion of religious principle.
These are profound insights that the father of our nation, our first president, and the leader of our revolution to freedom is leaving with us, is giving us. Let us with caution indulge the supposition that morality can be maintained without religion. So he's telling us we need morality in order to be able to interact with each other. And it cannot be maintained without the religion. The religion is the God's law. So he's basically saying we need God's law. We need to follow God's law and keep it incorporated into our society. This is what George Washington is saying. Whatever may be conceded to the influence of refined education on minds of particular structure, reason and experience both forbid us to expect that national morality can prevail in exclusion of religious principle. And that's what they're trying to force onto us. We're a rainbow pride country, and this is our law nationally. But he's saying we can't maintain our morality. And if we don't have our morality, we don't have the pillars of freedom and happiness. And they definitely want to take us away from our faith. And if we unite in our faith as Christians, we are the strongest everything in America. We're the richest, we're the biggest voting bloc. We're the majority. We all have the same principles. And if we have the courage to stand up for our principles and separate and create our own institutions that we will maintain control of and push our way into government, the blueprint has been laid. We got to start playing the game now. We got to push our way in the back door. But once we start voting, we'll win anyway. But we also got to get some control to reestablish principles, to go into areas where we don't like the principles and clean it up. We have to do it because this is our country. And this is the instruction that's left to us from the father of our nation. This is important information.
We're certainly seeing that in this day and age. As God has been chased out of the public sphere, we have lost our moral minds as it pertains to civic government and to society at large. It is substantially true that virtue or morality is a necessary spring of popular government. Again, he's taking this from a different angle, that virtue and morality are just absolutely necessary for a free and self-governing society. The rule indeed extends with more or less force to every species of free government. Who that is a sincere friend to it, that is religion and morality and free government, can look with indifference upon attempts to shake the foundation of the fabric. And so Washington's basically concluding this paragraph by saying if you're for freedom, if you're for self-government, then you cannot be indifferent to attempts to try and eradicate God from the public square, because he says God and these universal principles of morality and religion are foundations to a republic, a free self-governing republic. This is a web seminar provided by U.S. Civics Training. For PDF copy of these presentations or
So George Washington was basically telling us, don't lose your faith or you will lose your freedom. And your freedom will come from your faith. So if you even, and it's proven by the black free Americans. Blacks in many areas of the and intellectual lives of blacks and for the people in South Carolina. That's why I hate the racism thing. Free African American Christians founded their own churches, which became the hub of the economic, social, and intellectual lives of blacks in many areas of the fledgling nation. So our American culture came into maturity and came up out of the black Christian church. This is the origin of our culture. And our culture was formed from our struggle on different levels. So the first music that our culture produced was the Negro spirituals.
Noah, let me come in. Doors are fastened and the windows pinned. Keep your hand on that plow. Hold on. Noah said you done lost your track. Can't plow straight and keep a looking back. Keep your hand on that plow and hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your hand on that plow and hold on. Hold on.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Who are those children all dressed in red? God's gonna trouble the water. Must be the ones that Moses led. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble.
Went down to the river Jordan, where John baptized 3. When I walked the devil in hell, says Johnny baptized me. I say, roll, Jordan, roll. Oh, now roll, Jordan, roll. My soul will rise Jordan Road. Well, some say John was a Baptist. Some say John was a Jew. But I say John was a preacher, cause my Bible says so too. I say roll, Jordan, roll. Roll, Jordan, roll.
Good evening, everybody. We are the group.
It's a song about people. You could enslave our bodies, but you couldn't enslave our spirit. And those songs came out of our spirit. They came from in here. The spirit can go everywhere it wants to go.
Right.
And then it comes out here.
Hold on. Know that you stand by me wherever I be. My soul is sinking down in my dying hour.
They'd be on the tubs washing, and they were singing "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot" or whatever as they did it. So you got to hear all of those, and you could walk up and down the street. People would be singing the spiritual.
They're the songs that freed us. They liberated us. They give us joy and sadness even. I think those songs got the slaves over in many cases, or kept them encouraged. The fact that they could sing them, because they created them. And they do so much for us. I know personally, when I sing or hear spiritual, they're so uplifting. They just make me happy and joyful. So I think it would do the same for the youngsters if they really heard them.
It's a shame that the young black people don't know their culture and they never got an opportunity to understand their culture and be influenced by their culture, because another fraudulent and destructive culture was interjected from outside. And I was very fortunate to come up in the legacy of free blacks. I said the free blacks that established my church. I came up in that church. I came up in that black institution. So these spirituals, I heard them in church. You know, one thing I truly resent is that people on the left politically reached into our culture and started using our real culture. So then they start singing the Negro National Anthem at these events. The Negro National Anthem was something that white people would never even knew existed when I was coming up. And we only sung it at church. It's a beautiful song. And I love that song. And I always enjoy singing it in the AME church that I grew up in. And I heard these old people singing spirituals, some of these exact ones and some that's different from these. Really old people that didn't want no loud music. They just wanted to stomp and rock and sing their spirituals. I got to experience real, authentic black culture. This is how I know these people have never been exposed to it. Our young black people are totally disconnected from their culture and their American ancestry, the knowledge, the struggle, the lessons from that, which I got, which is why I say, you know, I don't think racism exists. If it does, I mean, I'm sure there's prejudice and there's people with negative sentiments about races, blacks, all, you know. I have negative sentiments about certain groups of people as well. But, you know, our A lot of the information that our young people, look, if you came up in the projects, you came up totally separated from black culture. You came up in in the belly of the beast, totally controlled environment. A lot of bad stuff for you. You probably didn't go to church. You probably didn't have a mother and a father. You probably didn't grow up with morality. You didn't get to get your culture. You didn't get your faith. I was very lucky to be born to Christians. Very lucky. And so this false culture that's been beamed into us now is dominating our young people and destroying them. Families can't form. A lot less families are forming. A lot more behavior in our daughters that are not good for them. And our media is a bunch of crap. Like where's the movie about like my sister? She stayed single and chased money guys. Probably got abortions. I'm not exactly certain. Now she's in her 50s, broke, no kids, never married, owns nothing, makes very little money. And the rest of her life going forward is going to be more of that. Only thing is she's going to get older and weaker. And she's going to have nothing. Where's the movie that had the lessons that shows the young people what this lifestyle, how it plays out? Because right now they thinking about, oh, I'm gonna get the money. These N words ain't shit. You know, I need a nigga with some money, pay me this, but no principles about fidelity, family, the natural order. You know, your man is to woman, husband is to wife, as Christ is to the church. Meaning he's the ultimate authority in his home. And with that authority comes a lot of responsibilities. But it's the best environment for family continuation. It's the best situation for family continuation. So it's best if your daughter marries a good man and starts a family and stays with that man, encourages that man and helps that man stay, give that man a reason to be on a straight path. He wants to be able to provide for his children and his wife, keep them safe. He's not worried about fidelity issues. He's not worried about, we have principles and morals. Where's the music that pushes those principles and morals and pushes those lessons? Where's the movies? Where's the music? Where's the, social media posts? Where's that? Everything is, women fighting against man, man beating woman, women can't trust man, sue man, relationships, all about look. The reason relationships are even the concept of relationship is ridiculous and it's dumb and it's stupid. You get together because you found a person that you can trust, who has the same Christian values as you, so you don't have to worry about infidelity. Someone who wants families, focus on family, prioritizes family, acknowledges you as the ultimate authority in her life before any other man is her husband, her big boss, the big man. She chooses a husband by choosing a man to meet an economic need, which is a person that you have confidence in by the way that they live their life and their principles to guide you, protect you and your offspring for life, so that that process can regenerate with your children. They find a partner for life. They reproduce. They have moral principles, and they stay together for life, accumulating wealth along the way, leaving wealth, providing stable situations for their children, everybody following under the rule of the man who's accepted that responsibility through marriage and honoring him. And by that, he must honor his family by staying sober, providing, giving good leadership, providing spiritual leadership, making sure the family goes to church, making sure to emphasizing the principles, biblical principles in your home to your children, to your wife, programming them with the proper Christian information and morality. Without that, we fail. George Washington said it, and the proof of it is that our whole culture and our whole modern black culture, when we matured out of slavery, the free black Americans created structural institutions based on faith, and our faith was our economics, our intellectual, and our social. Everything was about our faith. So we had to look decent, we had to behave decent, we had to marry daughters, we had to produce children, we had to live upstanding, because our community was our Christian community, and our culture developed around the principles of Christianity. So did our economics. And to me, this is the problem: make social and intellectual line. That's why I hate the racism thing. Free African American Christians founded their own churches, which became the hub of the economic, social, and intellectual lives of blacks in many areas of the fledgling nation. And to me, this is the problem that I see, whereas the same thing that's happening to the black community is happening to the nation. And it's happened to the nation because our prosperity as a nation came from our Christianity. And it even says that here for free African Americans. We can't have America without Christianity, and we're not going to have black Americans without Christianity. Free African American Christians founded their own churches, which became the hub. Hub being a very important word. Because if you think of a business hub, it's kind of like a place where everybody comes together and does business, and we all profit. So we had a hub. What was it? The Christian churches. So once we founded our own Christian churches, we had a hub for economic, social, and intellectual lives. Right. So we were people of the same mind frame and the same ideologies and morals coming together to do business. We can trust each other because I know you're a Christian, you know I'm a Christian, you know what I believe in is good things. I know what you believe in is good things. I know you're going to be honest to me. I know I'm going to be honest to you. I can trust you because we are Christians. So that part is settled. The trust is there. Now we can just do business. They found it and were a big part of the colleges. Yeah. The church kept us together. The further we get away from the church and from Christianity as a country and as a group of Americans, you know, it's not sustainable without it. Because without the morals, it's chaos. And it is chaos. Blacks were also outspoken in print. Freedom's Journal, The first black-owned newspaper appeared in 1827. Had our own newspaper, had our own media. This paper and other early writings by blacks fueled the attack against slavery and racist conceptions about the intellectual inferiority of African Americans. Created media that addressed the problem. The media that they didn't like, they created their own media and communicated truth in their perspective and their understanding. And that's what I'm saying we got to do. Yeah, and we pushed what was important to us, which was the injustice of slavery. This paper and other early writings by blacks fueled the attacks. We created media, free black people, free black Americans. That media fueled the attack against slavery and racial conceptions about the intellectual inferiority of African Americans. They didn't run to the government. They created their own privately owned media to send their own message to their own people and to the world. Because when you create media for the world. Even if you're communicating for the benefit of your people, you're still communicating with the world. African Americans also engaged in achieving freedom for others, which was a complex and dangerous undertaking. Enslaved blacks and their white sympathizers planned secret flight strategies and escape routes for runaways to make their way to freedom. Although it was neither subterranean nor a mechanized means of travel, this network of routes and hiding places was known as the Underground Railroad. Some free blacks were active conductors on the Underground Railroad, while others simply harbored runaways in their homes. Free black people of color, like Richard Allen, who happened to found the church that I grew up in, Frederick Douglass. So my Christianity comes from the free blacks. It was established by free blacks. My church was established by free blacks. I went to Richard Allen's church. Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth, David Walker, and Prince Hall earned national reputations for themselves by writing, speaking, organizing, and agitating on behalf of their enslaved compatriots. That's what I'm going to do. Thousands of freed blacks, with the aid of interested whites, returned to Africa with the aid of the American Colonization Society and colonized what eventually became Liberia. While some African Americans chose this option, the vast majority felt themselves to be Americans and focused their efforts on achieving equality within the United States. Yeah. Look what the freed blacks contributed for us. Some of them went back to Africa, but some of them said, you know what, we're going to stay here because we're Americans. This is our home. This is what we're comfortable with. We're just going to make this better. The freed blacks did that. So you may not necessarily come from slaves, and more should be shared about the life and society of free blacks. What was it like to be a free black? Where's that movie? Benjamin Banneker, the mathematician, women preachers, the Freedom Document. Oh, that's the actual Freedom Document. That's cool. Seaman, Underground Railroad, Minister. Yeah, well, there's a lot of Frederick Douglass. See, all of this to me, this is the real black history, and most blacks don't know anything about this. This is the writings of our ancestors, our free blacks. educated, accomplished. What are they thinking? Nobody knows. Nobody reads this stuff. I'm gonna read it. Yep, the Prince Hall Masons. And I know a lot of Prince Hall Masons.
So this web seminar is provided by USCivicsTraining.org, George Washington's Farewell Address, Part 6, Debt and Taxes. And we'll take a look now at George Washington's salient points on this topic. First, debt. And we find ourselves in paragraph 30 of George Washington's farewell address that he gave on Constitution Day, and here are his sentiments on debt. As a very important source of strength and security, cherish public credit. In other words, don't ruin a nation's credit by having too much debt. Also, he makes the point, having low or no debt is a source of national strength and national security. Boy, this sentence right here is so relevant to the modern conversation that's needing to be had in the United States. One method of preserving it is to use it as sparingly as possible. In other words, do not make it a practice to use debt or deficit spending. Avoiding occasions of expense by cultivating peace. He goes on, but remembering also that timely disbursements to prepare for danger frequently prevent much greater disbursements to repel it. And so here he's making the point that spending for national defense in advance and having a strong country is more prudent than after conflict ensues when it's more expensive to defend yourself. He goes on about debt by saying this, avoiding likewise the accumulation of debt, not only by shunning occasions of expense, and by shunning occasions of expense, what Washington is saying here is don't take on every pet project. The federal government's job is not to look for things to spend money on, but it's to be very cautious and to limit itself to its constitutional purposes in spending money. And so he continues the sentence by saying this, but by vigorous exertions in time of peace to discharge the debts which unavoidable wars may have occasioned. A couple of observations here. George Washington was a realist enough to know that there would be conflicts with other countries, and so wars and conflicts would be inevitable and would cause debts. But he says here that those debts that might be acquired during military conflicts need to be paid off as soon as possible, and not ungenerously throwing upon posterity the burden which we ourselves ought to bear. Again, a huge sentence here where Washington is describing the pure immorality of putting our debts on our children, grandchildren, and future generations. Washington would find himself in conflict with most government officials on this point in this day and age, and in society in general, that seems to be spend money now and to place those debts on our children, our grandchildren, and future generations.
This is the guidance from the father of our nation that he was giving us to preserve our nation. He was giving us his best advice on how to preserve our nation. So what is he saying? Keep your morality, keep your faith. Don't let them get, teaching us, giving us guidance on how the federal government should be using debt, and we are far from that. So see, these are the things, the American principles. He's laying these out. And our government, I don't think they're aware of what George Washington said. Let's review some of the things he said. As a very important source of strength and security, cherish public credit. In other words, don't ruin nations' credit by having too much debt. We have $34 trillion of debt, and we've been downgraded. So, if I cherish my credit, my personal credit, so I make sure all my, I don't go into debt unnecessarily. When I did go into debt, I paid it off as quickly as possible. I don't have any more debt. And I use it sparingly. So currently, my credit cards, I use them, but I pay them off at the beginning of every month. I never carry debt. I never pay interest. And that's how the government should be managing our credit. And if you got a 500 credit score, really low credit score, 400 credit score, you haven't cherished your credit because you didn't protect it. You destroyed it. And that's going to hurt you. And George Washington is telling us that it's going to hurt our nation. And this is what our government is doing. They are so opposite of these principles. It's un-American. Because what is American is what this man is telling us how we should manage America.
Security. Boy, this sentence right here is so relevant.
So by getting us in all of this debt, George Washington is letting us know that the government is reducing and destroying our national strength and national security. One method of preserving it is to use it as sparingly as possible. But as I told you before in the earlier stream, I think the government borrows $98,000 a second or a minute or something. So they're not using it sparingly. Do not make it a practice to use debt or deficit spending. That's what we do every year. We've been doing for decades. Avoid occasions of expense by cultivating peace. So stop creating wars and giving people bombs that drop on other people, and stop giving countries money to finance their wars, and instead foster peace. And our government does the opposite of that. And this is what George Washington was telling us we should do to keep our nation, and we're losing our nation.
Avoiding occasions of expense by
But remembering also that disbursements to prepare for danger frequently prevent much greater disbursements to repel it. Spending for national defense in advance is more prudent than after the conflict ensues when it's more expensive. That makes sense. I mean, invest in your defense and do it during peace and be strong and ready. So when they do pop off, you're already ready to go. Avoiding likewise the accumulation of debt. We haven't avoided the accumulation of debt as George Washington advised us, not only by shunning occasions of expense, but by vigorous exertions in time of peace to discharge the debts. So instead of running up debts, technically we're not in a war. We're paying for other people to fight the war, and we're accumulating debt. But this is supposed to be a peacetime for the United States. So we shouldn't be creating debt to finance other people's wars. We should be cutting the fat and paying down our debt because we're already at 34 trillion. If the government would just follow these principles, everything would be good. Not ungenerously throwing upon posterity the burden which we ourselves ought to bear. So the 34 trillion that President Trump, President Biden, and all these guys, President Obama racked up. If we make the bill, just imagine You run up $340,000 in credit card bills and die. And according to the law, your children have to pay your debts. So would you just die on your kids and leave them with that for your life? So they got to pay for your life and try to pay for their life. George Washington says it's wrong and immoral. The pure immorality of putting our debts on our children, grandchildren, and future generations. He's saying that's immoral. So it's un-American to accumulate this much debt to be passed on to future generations. So the generations of people who've accumulated this debt and haven't planned any way to resolve the debt are immoral. Our political leaders are mostly immoral. The execution of these maxims belongs to your representatives. Your representatives. The House of Representatives issue. They are alone accountable for the public purse. So the House of Representatives needs to fix this. But it is necessary that the public opinion should cooperate. Citizens have to care about not incurring debt. And they never, they always tell us on the news, we're going to do this because we allies with these people, or these people are bad and we got to stop them. So, but they never come to us and ask us, what do you guys think? You think we should spend this money on that? You think we should borrow this money to pay for that? We never get consulted, even though George Washington said they represent us. They're supposed to come and ask us what we want them to do, and they don't do that. They just get us in debt, and we don't have a say. We gonna go down this American road. We're gonna turn you people into Americans. We're gonna reorganize the way you think you're supposed to affiliate yourselves. We're gonna get our culture back, and we're gonna support our institutions, and we're gonna create our own institutions that are separate from legacy institutions. We're gonna fund our existing institutions, particularly our private education, our private Christian education institutions. We're gonna create a separate media. We're gonna create a separate social media, and we're gonna apply our principles to these platforms. So you will not see the things that is forbidden, and we will give you programming from life so you can see what happens to the promiscuous woman, what happens to the LGBTQ male. I was listening to this guy who happens to be a gay male, and he was just talking about life in Atlanta, and he was talking about some of the things he's seen. He's lived in, he's in a long-term relationship with a man, and I'm assuming this exclusive relationship. But just like we see our young ladies who've been influenced by the false culture that's been beamed into us from outside of us, not Christian, but other media people, separated from our faith, separated us from our faith, and separated us from our culture, and reprogrammed us with a representation of our culture, which is damaging. So just like we know the young women are on OnlyFans and they sell themselves, and the sugar daddies and the money, and the you can't trust them. They not there to try to form a family with you. They're to extract resources from you. Who's not committed to family. Reprogrammed our women out from up under our feet. This media and social media. And they need to be reprogrammed, and they need to have another option, and they need to be movies. Where's the movies and the songs that's teaching and telling about the pitfalls of that? Like I said, this gay dude, he was talking. He was saying these like the young women who do these things, the young gay men do these things, and he sees them lead themselves to death and they die. He's seen multitudes of them die. They're prostituting themselves just like the women do. They're promiscuous. Only thing is, they're doing it with men, and some men and women. They're catching HIV. They're dying. They're catching all kind of diseases. And even from my home church, there was this dude who we kind of suspected to be gay. He's a little older than me. He was a little weird. I think he was gay. He moved to Atlanta many years ago as a young man. He came back. I mean, you never knew of him with a woman. He came back. His skin was all dark. He probably was in his late 30s or early 40s. His skin was all dark and he was all fucked up, and then he died. And then it was never said what he had or whatever. They just like, yeah, dude died. I was like, damn. Died much earlier. And his gay man was like, lots of these men. He lives in Atlanta. He was saying how bad Atlanta is, but he's been living there so long. He was saying how these young gay men are getting themselves in all these situations, and they're dying, they're getting murdered, they're catching diseases, they live in foul. They don't have any type of ambition. They just go there and start prostituting themselves and getting into the clubs and the underworld and the drugs, and they end up dead. Many of them, they just total hedonists, demoralized, and purposeless, moralless, compassless. So they just running wild and they just dying. And the thing is, where's the media that's telling the stories of the dangers and the truth about, the LGBTQ life for young men, especially? What are the health statistics? What are the mental health implications for all the letters in the rainbow? All the letters. Where's the data on that lifestyle? So if you're even thinking about going into that lifestyle, you have a movie or a documentary or something that comes from your media that tells you stories of what's happened to people who live that life. We need a separate media that has that kind of information, that has the information of the single mothers, the kids that's born, the crime, the poverty, which is a result of going against Christian principles, which teaches about family, fidelity, morality, trustworthiness. You should be able to trust your woman. You can't trust a young woman today. So if a young man can't trust a young woman, how can they form a family? If she won't follow his leadership and understand that he is the ultimate authority in her life, and what his duties are to her and what her duties are to him, and understand that the purpose is not about a relationship or a feeling or an ick or Mr. Right. It's about two people who need each other economically, socially, and understanding their roles, and understanding that the important thing about that is forming a family. It's not about you and your feelings. It's about the continuation of our existence and creating situations that'll be beneficial and stable for future generations. Everybody's so about themselves, and all of the information is telling our young woman everything that's going to be anti-family. My body, my choice. Don't get married young. Have fun. Experience. Be independent. never be interdependent. So we're gonna lose our existence because of this false information. And if we don't form our own separate media and social media, we lose our country, we lose ourselves, we lose our existence. So Christians need to come together and form their own institutions, form politically and organize politically, establish and acknowledge our principles, and pledge to stick to our principles. Reincorporate our principles back into our society, reprogram our demoralized youth, and give them programming that shows them the path down the road for the bad decision making and the path down the road for the good decision making, that inspire family, music that inspires family, that shows the joy that you get from family and children, and music about even the principles of America, even about music about what George Washington said about being an American, talking in discussions about Americanism, Christianity, organizing amongst our faith, unifying and creating new systems that don't force feed us demoralizing information. Can't do it without faith. George Washington said it, and I agree with him. Free blacks. Let's talk about the free blacks from 1619 to 1860. In 1860, some 500,000 free people of African descent resided in the United States. Known alternately as free Negroes, free blacks, free people of color, or simply free people, to distinguish them from the post-Civil War freed people. Okay? So these people, there was 500,000 blacks in 1860 that were free. So I'm saying, so everybody didn't necessarily descend from slavery. There were people who came in the 1600s, blacks from Europe, that came and settled and were free. They comprise less than 2% of the nation's population and about 9% of all black people. So of all the black people, 10% of the black people were free. Well, it says 9%. If you round up 10%, so approximately 10% of all the blacks in America back then were free. They have descendants too. Although the free black population grew in the centuries before the universal emancipation that accompanied the Civil War, it generally increased far more slowly than either the white or the slave population, so that it was a shrinking proportion of American society. So the population was growing between the whites. The whites, had more resources and rights, so it was easier for them to provide, especially those who had land. And the slaves were breeded, so they all, slave owners always wanted more slaves because more slaves is more labor is more potential income. But the free blacks were important far beyond their numbers. They played a pivotal role in American society during slave times and set precedents for both race relations and relations amongst black people when slavery ended. Their status and treatment were harbingers of the post-emancipation world. Often the laws, attitudes, and institutions that victimized free blacks during slave years, political proscription, segregation, and various forms of debt peonage became the dominant modes of racial oppression once slavery ended. Similarly, their years of liberty profoundly influenced the pattern of post emancipation black life. Free people of African descent moved in disproportionate numbers into positions of leadership in black society after emancipation. For example, nearly half of the 22 black men who served in Congress between 1869 and 1900 had been free before the Civil War. Wow. So almost half of the blacks in Congress after the Civil War were free before the Civil War. So they were the free blacks were in Congress. Now, freed blacks after the Civil War were in Congress too. So half of the blacks weren't descended from slaves. Half of the blacks were free blacks that were representing the blacks. And the free blacks did the most to help the blacks get out their situation.
Hello, this short webinar is provided by uscivicstraining.org, George Washington's Farewell Address, Part 7, Foreign Policy, Morality, and Virtue. And Washington has some interesting thoughts here on foreign policy and where morality and virtue intersect. So to begin with, he says this in paragraph 31 as we move toward the end of Washington's Farewell Address. Observe good faith and justice toward all nations. Cultivate peace and harmony with all. Religion and morality enjoin, or meaning urge us in this conduct. And can it be that good policy does not equally enjoin it? It will be worthy of a free, enlightened, and at no distant period a great nation to give to mankind the magnanimous and too novel example of a people always guided by an exalted justice and benevolence. This is saying here that our behavior toward foreign nations are acting with good faith, justice, honesty, and integrity toward nations, as well as our model of government in the Declaration and the Constitution, will eventually move the United States quickly to becoming a great nation and serve as a model to the world. And
okay, let's break this down. Observe good faith and justice towards all nations. Now, would you say that all nations feel as though we treat them with good faith? Didn't we seize assets in the U.S. Federal Reserve banks and all that stuff that belong to the nation of Russia? Did we not sanction, support the efforts of certain countries to damage other countries? We finance it and we provide weaponry. So the people who are fighting against the people that we are arming and financing, would they say that we're treating them with good faith and justice is what's going on in Gaza? Is that, would they say that we're affecting them in a way of good faith and justice when we're providing bombs for their cities to be destroyed and we're paying for the operation of the destruction of their lands and their people? We shouldn't be involved in that. We shouldn't be taking sides in that. Religion and morality urge this conduct. So if we stuck to our religion and our morality, we would have the guidance from our holy text, which is the Holy Bible, not to do that. So if the people who are in leadership over our politicians, our representatives, as well as people that work in the government, they wouldn't be doing these corrupt activities that indebt us and don't do in good faith dealing in just interactions with any other nation. Can it be that good policy does not equally urge it? It will be worthy of a free, enlightened, and at no distant period, a great nation. So our religious faith gives us the ability to make decisions that are in our best interest and worthy of us, of a free, enlightened, and at no distant period, a great nation. To give mankind the magnanimous and too novel example of a people always guided by an exalted justice and benevolence. Admitting the if we don't have a universal law, like nobody alive on the earth today can take credit for writing the holy text that we go by. So none of us wrote it. So we all have to agree to it. And we accept that it came from an exalted, just, and benevolent entity. And they're tearing us from that at every level. George Washington is telling us.
So the founding fathers in Washington in particular realized how the United States had become a depository of freedom and liberty for the world, and as the United States lived that out, it could further propagate that gift to the world, that of freedom and liberty and representative government. And this is all represented in how we would conduct our foreign policy. He goes on this theme a bit further and says this: who can doubt that in the course of time and things the fruits of such a plan would richly repay any temporary advantages which might be lost by steady adherence to it? What he's saying here is the adherence to this policy of acting honestly with integrity to other nations would prove to manifest long-term benefits that may not be readily apparent at the beginning and would far surpass any temporary advantages that might be made by cutting corners and offering shady deals. He goes on, can it be that Providence, that is God, has not connected the permanent felicity of a nation with its virtue? In other words, isn't it one of God's principles that the happiness of a nation is associated with its virtue? The experiment, at least, is recommended by every sentiment which ennobles human nature. And so he is saying here that basically in our hearts we know this to be true, but alas, it's rendered impossible by its vices. So in other words, if we don't work toward morality and virtue, by default our vices will take over and will not exhibit this behavior. He goes on then to explore what if we don't work toward morality and virtue, by default, our vices will take over and will not exhibit this behavior. He goes on then to explore what this means if our vices take over. And he begins to talk about selfish ambition and foreign influence. So Washington continues in paragraph 33. And it gives to ambitious, corrupted, or deluded citizens, that is, those who devote themselves to the favorite nation, whether they're in a civil office or doing this as citizens, a facility to betray or sacrifice the interest of their own country without odium, that means without disgrace, sometimes even with popularity. In other words,
come on, man!
Sometimes they do this betrayal of the interest of their own countries, and they're rewarded with popularity for it. They do this by gilding, that is, putting on a fake veneer that this is actually a valuable transaction. They gild it with the appearance of virtuous sense of obligation, a commendable deference for public opinion, or laudable zeal for public good, the base or foolish compliances of ambition, corruption, or infatuation. Well, again, a somewhat...
They don't give a fuck!
Means. He's basically saying, in other words, that those that operate with selfish ambition create such a facade that something that is base, foolish, full of selfish ambition and corruption is presented to the public and is put forward as something that appears virtuous, commendable, laudable, or for the public good. And so on the ironic twist of things, they receive the praise of the public, whereas they're operating under their own selfish self-interest. Some modern examples might include these for discussion if you're in a small group or if you're watching this as an individual for your own thinking. Modern examples in foreign affairs might include such things as this, just to get your mind thinking. Politicians getting campaign funds from foreign companies or countries. Companies selling technology and trade secrets that compromise national security. It might even include judges that look to foreign law to support their rulings in the U.S. in order to gain popularity and acclaim. And so these would be maybe some examples that would be representative of what Washington was speaking about. Washington now continues in paragraph 34. He says that such attachments are particularly alarming to the truly enlightened and independent patriot, because these foreign attachments that operate through selfish ambition and backdoor deals and in secret, how many opportunities do they afford to tamper with domestic factions, to practice the arts of seduction, to mislead public opinion, to influence or awe public councils, and again what this means is to overwhelm our system of government because there are these behind-the-scene backdoor deal agreements and things being done. And then he even concludes this paragraph by saying this: such an attachment of a small or weak towards a great and powerful nation dooms the forward to be the satellite of the latter. What he means by this is that small nations that find a path to these backdoor compromises and foreign influences with greater nations will forever be beholden or will be foreign satellites or subsidiaries of the larger nation. And so basically they sell their national soul into slavery through these backdoor deals. So he even expresses a concern for those countries that are taking advantage of these backdoor deals. He finishes by saying this: real patriots who may resist the intrigues of the favorite are liable to become suspected and odious, and again that means viewed with extreme displeasure, while its tools and dupes, that is the fools that usurp the applause and confidence of the people to surrender their interests, are the ones that get the praise. And so he is re-emphasizing here the thing that I said earlier in this short seminar. Because those that are doing these backdoor deals and allowing foreign influence to come in present those things as noble and worthy and beneficial to the country, and they're believed, the true patriots that call these things out and resist them actually are viewed by the people as being suspected or viewed with displeasure because of the propaganda that those that are doing the backdoor deals and allowing for the foreign influence out of their own selfish ambition are fooling the people. And so Washington concludes all of these sentiments with paragraph 36 and says this: against these insidious wiles, that is, these deceptions, cunnings, and manipulations to foreign influence, I conjure you to believe me, fellow citizens, that the jealousy of a free people ought to be constantly awake, since history and experience prove that foreign influence is one of the most baneful foes of Republican government. So again, as we learned in another web seminar on the farewell address, Washington again says the citizens cannot be asleep on this matter. They can't be asleep on foreign policy. They can't be asleep on national debt. They can't be asleep on their government not being transparent. They can't be asleep on the usurpation of power of one branch taking the power from another branch or ruling autocratically. And so he really concludes, again, this short paragraph with the same challenge as it pertains to be aware of what's going on and how government might be possibly, or leaders within government might be manipulating you. Again, this is uscivicstraining.org. My name's Craig Seibert. Thanks for listening.
Now, it's important that some of the stuff we talk about, okay, now, as avenues to foreign influence in innumerable ways, such attachments are particularly alarming to the truly enlightened and independent patriot. So, how many opportunities do they afford to tamper with domestic factions? Okay, so you got to think all this foreign money coming into the United States are exactly doing that, tampering with domestic factions. People funded, BLM riots and protests outside foreign interests, funded the campaigns of district attorneys around the country, and then use those district attorneys to target political individuals. It's foreign interest, foreign influence. This is, and then when you hear your politician saying this stuff.
But today, the two leaders were all smiles, saying reporters had gotten it all wrong. They never gave each other the cold shoulder.
The bond between the United States and Israel is unbreakable. Reports States and Israel is unbreakable. Between the United States and Israel.
The cold shoulder.
The bond between the United States.
Shoulder.
The bond between the United States and Israel. The bond between the United States and Israel is unbreakable. The bond between the United States and Israel is unbreakable. The bond between the United States and Israel is unbreakable. The bond between the United States and Israel is unbreakable.
What he means by this is that small
such attachments are particularly alarming to the truly enlightened and independent patriot. And I am alarmed by that statement. And why does our country have an unbreakable bond when we were warned against foreign influence?
Today, we finally acknowledge the obvious, that Jerusalem is Israel's capital. This is nothing more or less than a recognition of reality.
America's commitment to the security of Israel is ironclad, and I might add, so is mine.
Like all Americans, I have been inspired by Israel's long struggle to survive and to flourish. America, as always, is proud to stand with you.
And you have built a mighty democracy that will endure forever and can always count on the United States of America to be at your side.
And as the president of a country that you can count on as your greatest friend, I believe
your future is bound to ours.
The respect and the admiration we have for the people of this nation, their courage, their tenacity, is one that makes us proud to stand with Israel as we have in the past.
It was 70 years ago that the United States under President Truman recognized the State of Israel. I stand in awe of the accomplishments of the Jewish people, and I make this promise to you: my administration will always stand with Israel.
George Washington would not like that.
That find a path to these backdoor compromises and foreign influences with greater nations will forever be beholden or will be foreign satellites or subsidiaries of the larger nation. And so basically they sell their national soul into slavery through these backdoor deals. So even
So all of these people that are these foreign people, these non-Americans, these definitely non-foundational American individuals who did not build this, we built it. Who built it? The white man and the black man, the foundational Americans. My brothers, me and my white brothers. And we share principles based on Christianity. That's who built America. And our white brother, who served as the first president of this union and who fought and led the fight for our freedom, left us with guidance. And it was against the foreign influence of people, because then self-serving politicians who don't have morality and religion sell out America for their own personal gain, but to the detriment of our country, which is putting us in debt. He talked about putting us in debt is bad. Use debt sparingly, he advised us, and we don't do that. What will these foreigners do? What will these outside interests and non-foundational Americans, what will they do?
is a concern for the
George Washington says they will tamper with domestic factions, BLM, the outside influence, paying for the campaigns of local politicians such as district attorneys and prosecuting attorneys, outside interests financing them and then turning them against. So they're creating tampering with domestic factions. So now the local politicians are have been turned against certain politicians, certain businesses, certain messages. Practice the art of seduction. Yeah, that lure you into some immoral situation. Look at Hollywood. Mislead public opinion. So now that these outsiders have influence over our politicians, now politicians are misleading us, telling us we benefit from supporting these foreigners. So we get nothing, but we get to pay for their wars, and we get to go into debt to pay for their wars and finance their wars and provide them with armaments to their wars. We get to go into debt for that. And we're told that this is the right thing to do. That's misleading public opinion. To influence or all the public councils. Such an attachment of a small or weak towards a great and powerful nation dooms the former to be the satellite of the latter. And it appears that we've been turned into a satellite state of other nations. Why do we got to pay for their wars? Why do we got to arm them? How is this affecting our security? Why is it our responsibility? Why do we have to pay? Why do we have to be made poorer? Why are we being fleeced by corruption? Because we don't know what it's like to be an American, and we didn't listen to George Washington's speech that he gave us and left us advice,
countries
guidance
that are taking advantage of these backdoor deals. He finishes by saying that,
yeah, backdoor deals, because then you hear about all these people from other countries who are forcing us to pay for their stuff. They're financing, they make the politician come see them. They make them go and see the wall and wear they hat and accept them as being the ones that we need to protect the relationship with and continue to finance them and to our detriment. Controlling the narrative in the media, now trying to pass laws in our country saying we can't criticize them. And all of our politicians are just falling down in line and selling us out.
About the demise of the special U.S.-Israel.
But today, the two leaders were all smiles, saying reporters had gotten it all wrong. They never gave each other the cold shoulder.
The bond between the United States and Israel is unbreakable.
Reports about the demise of the special U.S.-Israel relationship aren't just premature. They're just flat wrong.
There was international outrage after Israel attacked a convoy trying to relieve its embargo on Gaza and killed 9 people. The president praised Netanyahu for loosening the embargo and being willing to negotiate.
I believe that Prime Minister Netanyahu wants peace.
But both the president and the prime minister dodged questions about extending Israel's partial moratorium on building new Israeli settlements on the West Bank.
The president and I discussed concrete steps that could be done now to move the peace process further along.
For Israel, the biggest issue is Iran's nuclear weapons program. And on that, the president implicitly backed Israel's undeclared nuclear deterrent.
We remain unwavering in our commitment to Israel's security.
But experts say the Middle East peace process and clamping down on Iran are not separate goals.
The way you build alliances in the Middle East and are able to contain Iran and isolate Iran is by moving forward on the Middle East peace process.
The prime minister also invited the president and the first lady to Israel, and the president's reply, "I'm ready." Katie?
All right, Bill Plan at the White House. Bill, thanks very much.
What do we get out of that relationship, and how much that relationship cost us? What are the tangible benefits to us, and what is the expense to us? And why are we committed to this nation? That's a foreign nation. Why are we not listening to George Washington? Why are we going against American principles that were established by the founder of our nation?
To these backdoor compromise, because they're practices that are particular. He says that such attachments are particularly in campaign funds from foreign companies or countries, companies selling technology and trade secrets that compromise national security. It might even include judges that look to foreign law to support their rulings in the U.S. in order to gain popularity and acclaim. And so these would be maybe some examples that would be representative of what Washington was speaking about. Washington now continues in paragraph 34. He says that such attachments are particularly alarming to the truly enlightened and independent patriot, because these foreign attachments that operate through selfish ambition and backdoor deals and in secret, how many opportunities do they afford to tamper with domestic factions, to practice the arts of seduction, to mislead public opinion, to influence or awe public councils, and again what this means is to overwhelm our system of government because there are these behind-the-scene backdoor deal agreements and things being done. And then he even concludes this paragraph by saying this: such an attachment of a small or weak towards a great and powerful nation dooms the forward to be the satellite of the latter. What he means by this is that small nations that find a path to these backdoor compromises and foreign influences with greater nations will forever be beholden or will be foreign satellites or subsidiaries of the larger nation. And so
we have a vision of Washington today that's very distant. He seems almost sort of a figure off Mount Olympus, if not Mount Rushmore. And we think of him as being above the partisan fray, and as a result, he's lost a bit of his humanity. He was a very self-monitoring man. He understood very clearly the discipline of dignity, which is how he saw leadership, being a general. But that behind the mask of command that he very carefully cultivated, that particularly during his second term, that this was a man in pain, psychic pain, physical pain. He was becoming brittle and ill-tempered. He would go into furious rages, largely about the forces of partisanship that he could feel exploding even within his own cabinet. You know, here was a man with no sons, but his two most talented cabinet members, two surrogate sons, Jefferson and Hamilton, were warring with each other even within his own cabinet. And here Washington was trying to reconcile their divisions very actively. There was every indication that America might devolve into a civil war, that we could go the way other republics had in the past of being divided and our own worst enemy. And that's what Washington, based on his understanding of history, actively was trying to correct with the farewell address. So here was a man in full. And he brought all the aspects of his life into this speech. It was the sum total of all his hard-won wisdom. This was a document that people understood had a kind of transcendent value. It alone, I think, has the ambition among the founding documents to bridge the past with the present, with the future. And that also makes it unique.
God will multiply your blessings. You are a great person, a great grandson, a great son, and a great friend. God will, multiply your blessings.
Nigga got money.
He has extra money, so he's, oh, sure, here, yeah, let me loan you this, let me give you this, because I've got more than I need.
Hey, Pookie, you clean yourself up, man. Maybe I'll give you a job. All right, man. Yo, man, you want to buy a turkey? You want to buy a turkey?
SP motherfucking I. Oh, wow. They don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck.
I mean, discipline is doing what you hate to do, but do it like you love it. Doing what you hate to do, but do it like you love it. That is a great quote.
Stay the fuck away from these hoes, the dumb motherfuckers. Like, god damn.
Somebody gonna be heartbroken, bro. Somebody's dream ain't gonna come true. Somebody gonna have to get back on that horse. Somebody might have to start back over. You see? Somebody gotta go back to that end of the line.
Damn, not my boy on that feet.
On that feet. Wake your ass up.
Slap him again, cuz.
Wake your ass up.
Damn. Get up, cuz. Tighten up. Shake back. Shake him back.
Shake back, nigga.
Shake back.
No.
Shake back.
Nigga.
Shake back.
Shake back,
Slap him
nigga.
again one more time.
Shake
back. Shake back.
Okay, keep saying that.
That nigga sweating his head.
I hate you.
I hate you too, little nigga.
What the fuck is you looking at?
Suck a dog dick, nigga. Fuck you, nigga. And I said I suck your dick.
Now go home and get your fucking shine box.
I mean, discipline is doing what you hate to do, but do it like you love it. Doing what you hate to do, but do it like you love it. That is a great quote.
You ain't black.